Well, welcome everyone, and thank you for making the time on your Wednesday afternoon to come listen to us talk all things shoes. Today I've got Zach from Pace Athletic on the call as well, and he's going to be taking us through a whole range of shoes, what to look for, the different types, brands, heel pitches, stability shoes. And before we were on the call, Zach and I were chatting, and he was talking about, when you go into a running store, it can be quite intimidating seeing, especially down at the Manly store, you got about 50 shoes on one side and about 20 shoes on the other side. And it's like, where do I start and what do I need? So today I want us to do a good kind of live Q&A and help you guys understand. I'll just give you a little bit more information about shoes and the difference in them because uh, from my experience training a whole range of runners, over time I've had a lot of clients that have bought shoes online. They hadn't been sized in ages, and they were actually running in either half a size too small or maybe sometimes a full size too big. But those half size too small were getting a lot of, toenail issues. And then also they didn't know that they might ne have needed arch support or, more of a stability shoe. So if you haven't, I highly recommend going to get your foot sized because it does change over years. And what might have been your shoe size 10 years ago, I don't know, I can't remember the last time I got my shoe sized before I did. Yeah, so highly recommend getting down to Pace Athletic or a specialty shoe running store and getting your foot kind of sized up. I'm not sure. Zach might have a little bit more to chat on that when he gets to his point, but yeah, about what to look for when sizing up and maybe some technology they're using these days in around that. Um, so first and foremost, I just wanted to have a quick little chat about kind of my point of view on shoes. And I want to talk about running on varied terrain as well. I wanted to bring a little bit of education to this call. And, shoes, from my point of view, have changed dramatically in the last 10 to 15 years. About 8 years ago, I was working for Nike as Nike's head run coach. And, we were in the Zoom kind of era there, and it was pre carbon plated shoes. And then we went through well, maybe Abel is a guess. Yep. So we went into the carbon era, which is really prevalent now, and a lot of brands have really stepped up in their quality of shoe. Like the level of shoes are fantastic, and personally, I run in a whole range of shoes from Hoka to Adidas to New Balance. Nike on running, like they're all really, really good quality now, and it's really important to find a shoe that works best for you and your biomechanics, but also your training load as well. That's going to be really important. And the right shoe can help support your training. It can help manage fatigue. It can help reduce the risk of injury. And the wrong shoe can also cause overload tissues, overload bones. If you're on the last call with Bo, we spoke a lot about bone stress and how prevalent that is at the moment. But shoes can also have a major impact on that if you're not changing them regularly, staying in the same shoes, etc. Um, so shoes, from my point of view, should match the session. So depending on the type of session I'm doing, I will pick a shoe around that. So, for example, if I'm just going for a very easy chilled run, I'll pick something that's a little softer, a little bit more plush. that's going to aid a little bit more of recovery, but not take so much of a toll on the body. So, for example, I just got a New Balance, this new one I'm running in at the Eclipse. Like you can see, the foam is quite soft, it's quite bendy, and really easy to kind of run in. A bit more of an active recovery shoe. I've also then got my kind of like tempo workout shoes, so something that might have a little bit of like a mid-tier plated plate in it. And then I've also got like my long run shoes, something like a Mega Blast or a Super Blast for myself, from Asics. And then you got obviously your race day shoes that might be like really hard and a lot of carbon. So Zach will go into more detail around shoes soon. So with shoes, I always believe comfort is like one of the most important aspects. So making sure that shoe fits well for you. Again, I had another client a few years back who was running in shoes, never got his foot fitted, and he actually has a really wide foot. Now, there's a lot of shoes now that come with wide options. And he like was really hating running because he didn't have that right shoe fitted to his foot. So his foot was always cramped. He used to get a lot of cramps, a lot of kind of injuries on the side of his foot. Changed the shoe, got fitted, and then he's been running like really well since then. So getting fitted is really important. And finding that shoe that fits and works best for you is really important. One of probably the number one question I always get is like, Maddie, what shoe should I be wearing? Or like, what shoe do you wear? And what works for me might not work for everyone else. So I always say it's really important to go try on a few shoes, get fitted, see what feels best for you. And try not to be influenced too much by social media on what other people are wearing because that might not be the best suit for you. So to kind of go on to the second part that I wanted to talk about before I pass it over to Zach is last time we had Bo on and we spoke about bone stress, and I just wanted to add a little bit more onto that, especially with shoes, is making sure that as a runner, especially someone who is a road runner, is making sure we have um, time on different terrain. I think one of the habits that we fall in as especially road runners is we consistently run on the same terrain, on the same loop, on the same camber, on the same surface every single day. And that load ends up being exactly the same on tissues in the body. And it's really important to help with repetitive stress to change up that stimulus. So for myself, when I'll be going for a run, I'll try and add in a little bit of grass running, might be running on the trails, it might be adding some stairs, some hills, running on low tide along the beach, and just trying to get that varied terrain up. And that's not only going to strengthen the tissues in your foot mechanics around your ankles and your Achilles, but it's also going to help with your proprioception, your neuromuscular output, as well as your tendons and joints. So if you find yourself always running on the same loop, on the same course, etc., I highly recommend trying to vary it up. It doesn't have to be all the time. It might be once a fortnight, but just adding in some different terrain to add some different stimulus. That's going to help with training durability, injury prevention, but also it might add into your shoe choice as well. So I'm going to pass it over to Zach. Now he spends his days, with shoes. He's got a really good knowledge of shoes. He knows the most up-to-date shoes on the market at the moment. For me as a coach, I find it really hard keeping up to date with all the shoes, and that's why I want to grab Zach on today because what I saw in store when I was last there can be completely different a few weeks later with different models coming in, etc. So I'm going to pass it over to Zach now, and he's going to talk all things shoes.
Awesome. Thanks, Maddie. Yeah, happy to be here and share a bit of my knowledge. I thought first maybe I'll just give a bit of a background to who I am. So I've worked at Pace for around just over 3 years now. Um, I was one of those COVID era runners that really got immersed in the space when football and other things got cancelled, and I needed to dive into something else. So yeah, running was that kind of hobby that I picked up, and yeah, end up changing careers and shifting into the running space. Didn't know how long I was going to be at Pace for, but given how much the industry has expanded and yeah, how awesome running has kind of become, it's been an awesome space to grow. So Pace is a business. We've got 7 stores across Sydney, Blue Mountains, all the way out as our trail store, and then we've got Manly, Mossman, Crow's Nest, Roselle, Waverley, Castle Hill. So all across Sydney. And yeah, today we're going to dive into all things running shoes. And it was interesting hearing what Maddie was saying there because, yeah, a few of those things really hit home about when people come into store, we do naturally get pretty influenced by friends and social media we should be wearing. But at the end of the day, the shoe that fits you best is going to be the shoe that's best for you, and then the ones that align with your goals. So yeah, we'll dive on in. I've got a few slides that we can run through. So first things first, I might minimize this screen so we can see all of that. Just running through the different shoe categories. Like as Maddie was saying there are so many shoes out there these days. You walk in a running store and you look at a wall and it's like, where do I start? So this visual here just shows how many different categories there are. On the left side of the screen, those neutral daily trainers, stability trainers, your daily trainer category makes up a very large majority of the wall. But then within that, there's subcategories. So you got your big guys, the max cushioned shoes, your lightweight daily shoes, and then your stability and neutral shoes, which we'll dive into a little bit how they influence your running and who might be best for those sort of shoes. Your trail shoes, and then on the right, you've got some of your more specialized like performance type shoes. So those speed tempo shoes, whether they're plastic plated or carbon plated, long runs, and like this word here, super trainer, that's kind of a buzz at the moment, and something that didn't exist 2 years ago, even when I started working in the space. That's a really interesting shoe now where it blends race day foam with long run performance and takes those plates out of the equation. So a little bit easier on the legs. And then track spikes for those track runners, and then your race day shoes. So jump across. So one of the things Maddie and I were speaking about that's important that not everyone may be aware of is what are the different drops in a shoe. So when someone comes into store to see us, the first thing we kind of go through is kind of a discovery process. It's like what are the goals? What are you training for? What have you worn in the past? Do you have any injuries or anything that we might need to know about? And that helps lead us down a pathway of narrowing down what that wall looks like and what shoes you might go into. So basically all running shoes are broken up into 0 mil drops all the way through to 12 mil drops. So the 0 to 4 mil drop range really lengthens your calves and Achilles, and targets those lower extremity muscles. So if you think about the muscles in your feet, the calves and Achilles, the flatter the shoe is, the more that those muscles lengthen and the harder that they work. So if you're someone that struggles with your calves and Achilles, then those are shoes that for the most part you might want to avoid. And then you move into this mid drop range, that 5 to 8. 8 mil is kind of seen as like the Goldilocks zone of drops. It's a good balance between shifting the weight from your hips, your quads, your hammies, and taking the weight away from your calves and Achilles, and it just balances that load across your entire muscle groups. So it's a nice in between zone. And then you move into your high. So you'll see a lot of shoes will be in that kind of eight mil zone, and we'll see that in a moment. And then your high drop. So lifts the heel off the ground, takes the weight off the lower extremities, moves it into your bigger muscle group. So you think quads, hammies, knees, hips, and targets those dominant muscle groups. So there's not as many shoes in that category, but there's a few that, yeah, that when you move into that zone, a lot of the time it targets those people that really want to take the load away from those lower muscles. And then the next big thing, and this is probably the thing that's changed the most, like I was talking there about super trainers and all these the new technologies that are coming into the space. Is the midsole, so the foam. That's the thing that's really evolving at the moment, and it seems like every year the brands are introducing new foam technology that takes that experience to the next level. So what does the midsole really do? It dictates how soft a firm a shoe is going to feel, so that proprioception between your foot and the ground, how much energy you're getting back from it. So depending on what sort of foam you're using, it's really going to change how much energy and pop and spring you're getting back from the foam. How long a shoe lasts. So these super foams, they're great, energetic, lightweight, but they might not last as long. And then how versatile is it going to be across different different paces? And that's where those super trainers seem to do really well, that they're pretty versatile across a lot of pace groups. So why does that matter for most runners? Well, for everyone on the call, yeah, I'm assuming the fact that you're working with Matty as your coach and a part of his academy, like you're all training for something this year, and having those different runs on different days of the week, like Matty was saying at the start, is you're kind of wanting different shoes and different foams to target those different runs and different days of the week. So just to dive into a few of those, EVA is just like your basic standard foam. So you'll find that in a lot of your daily trainers, and it's all around that comfort underfoot. A lot of people can use it, so it's very accessible and great for the easy miles. Is Supercritical means nitrogen infused, so you're putting some air into the foam. So the EVA becomes a little bit lighter, a little bit springier, and it just makes it more durable. So and versatile. You can use it for some of your faster runs. Now we move up into PIBA and ATPU. So PIBA, if you think like super lightweight, super energetic, when you start to move towards like your Saucony Endorphin Speeds or your Nike Vaporflies and Alpha Flies, like that Zoom X foam, that's your PIBA foam. So really lightweight and responsive, but it doesn't necessarily last as long. So you might only get like 150 to 300 kilometers out of that shoe versus a daily trainer, which you might get like 600 to 800 kilometers out of. And then ATPU is this new foam that is starting to make a real a real play in shoes. And it's very versatile across different pace groups. Like New Balance have just put it into their new daily trainer, but race shoes are also using it as well. So it blends both race day and daily training. So going to start to see that a lot more in the next year or so. All right. So we'll dive into the daily training category. And what I'm going to do is just break up just the 4 or 5 different categories and let you know kind of what's out at the moment, but then what makes those great and which type of runs. So the daily trainer category, that's all about comfort. So comfort is king. Lots of padding, lots of plush, feeling for uppers and padding around the ankle and heel, and then big stack heights of foams for the majority. You'll see that a lot of these shoes are down in this right-hand corner. And the way that I've drawn up this is stack height across the top. So there's not many in that low stack. That mid stack, there's a fair few, but in that high stack, there's a lot of options in there. And then on the left-hand side, it's those drops that we were talking about at the start. So that just visualizes where the different shoes might sit. And yeah, this is something I can share after as well, just for your knowledge to see where you might want a shoe to sit based on some of those things we were talking about at the start with the different loads. So the neutral daily trainer doesn't have any arch blocks or guide rails. It's not for someone that's an overpronator. Your foot can move independently in the shoe. And what we would do in store, we do simple gait analysis, and we have a look at you walking and running up and down the store, and we'll have a look at how your arch is responding to that load. And then we're able to see whether or not these neutral shoes are going to be good for you, or you might benefit from having a little bit more support underneath your arch and through the ankle. So these shoes last a long time. Like I was saying before, you might get 600 to 800 kilometers based on how you use the shoe, but they're meant to be durable. So it's meant to be able to get you through the majority of those easy runs, and maybe slightly, if you're picking up the pace a little bit, it's also going to be good for that. But they're versatile in what you can use them for. So your max cushion guys down the bottom corner here, thinking, just point to a few, but your Brooks Glycerin, your Saucony Triumph, your Vomero, these are all higher drop, higher stack. And they're all designed for that really easy run. So the type of foams they're using here is that EVA foam, really soft, really cushy underfoot, takes the load off your legs if you're in a big block. And it's really important during those weeks to be in these shoes where you can really take the load off the legs and let them rest and recover after a lot of hard stimulus. So yeah, one couple in here that I've loved training in the past, like the Vomero Plus and Saucony, have been awesome training companions to me. But like we were saying at the start, like come on into store, try a few different ones on and see which one feels and fits the best for you. And then that lightweight daily trainer is something that's maybe a bit more versatile. So like your Hoka Mach 6 or the Mach 7, which is coming out, Asics Nova Blast, even the new 1080, it's using that ATPU foam, so it's a bit more poppy and responsive than what it has been in the past. Like, so those ones are a bit more versatile than these really high stacked max cushioned shoes in there. All right, jump to the next category. So now we're looking at the stability trainer. So you'll see on the left-hand side, like a lot of things I've written are very similar to the neutral daily trainer. They're built around comfort and protection. There's lots of plush padding, but the main difference here is in those arch blocks and guide rails. So like Asics will have stability blocks that kind of sit underneath the arch. The Hoka shoes have a H frame support, so it kind of wraps up and around the side of the foot. Brooks has got their guide rail system, so it sits like bumper bars on a bowling alley around your foot. Nike have those arch blocks as well. So the way they achieve this now is through non-intrusive support. So it's more the geometries of the shoe rather than medial posts or arch curves in the midsole. You don't really feel it. The support pushing up against your arch. You feel the geometry helping stabilize the arch and roll you through each step. So again, really durable outsoles and foams, pretty similar to the neutral daily trainers, EVA type foams. And then you've got different categories in here. So a few different ones is if we had a look at your gait and, for example, it looks like you're pronating, overpronating a little bit, but not your hips and knees aren't internally rotating too much. There's these mid stability shoes. So Adidas and Hoka have shoes that give you stability, but they don't have overly supportive like arch blocks and guide rails. So you can kind of jump into those if you need it. And then taking a step up in stability, or same as the Asics GT 2000 there. And then if you need something more stable and you overpronate a lot, then there's these other options here: the Brooks, the Asics, Hoka, and Nike. And again, yeah, come on into store, and that gait analysis, we can take you through that in store and find out what works best for you, and come and try a few different ones on. In terms of drop heights, again, you'll see here there really aren't that many low drop shoes. They start closer to that like 5 to 8 and move all the way through to 12. Because a lot of the time with these stability shoes, yeah, you might be trying to take the load off those lower extremities and moving it up. So that 8 to 12 mil range is more common. All right, we'll jump across to now the exciting sort of shoes. Your daily trainers can get a little bit boring each week, so you want to pick up your faster shoes. So what are your speed and tempo shoes designed for? So yeah, when you've got those runs programmed by Maddie, and you're doing some interval work, or you've got a 40-minute tempo and you're picking up the pace, you're getting your heart rate up, you're ticking the legs over, these shoes are going to be your companion. So what's the main thing that's changing? Well, it's the foam really, and the uppers. They're reducing weight wherever they can. So they're not meant to last as long as a daily trainer, but when you're only running in them 1 or 2 times a week, well, you still get your bang for buck out of that. So lightweight foam, so it starts to move into like those PIBA type foams or supercritical foams with plates built in. And these shoes become a lot more stiff. So when Maddie was like bending that shoe at the start, the New Balance Ellipse, if you try and flex a lot of these shoes, they're a lot stiffer in the midsole. They're designed to carry you through each step quicker and act as kind of that spring loading through each and every step. And that's what the nylon and carbon plates are doing in there. So the super foams that we're talking about, this the stack height in these shoes is enormous. You'll see a lot again towards that right hand corner. You're looking at stack heights, yeah, 38 through to 46 mils. And like an interesting fact there is, for most marathon, well, for marathons and for any of those like Ironman type events, like 40 mils is the maximum amount. So in a race, you can't race with anything larger than 40 mils. But in training, I mean, you go for it. You try and get as much help as you can, right? Anything to take the load off the legs. That's what these guys are helping you do. So like Super Blast is 45 mils plus, same as the Mega Blast there. There's so many good options in that high stack, high response, lightweight category. Like sometimes in store we'll pick up these boxes and it feels like there's only one shoe in there. But that's how light these guys are. These speed and tempo shoes, that's another thing about like what's a good race day shoe. You don't necessarily need to be in a carbon plated shoe. It really depends on what your goals are. There's a lot of great shoes in this category here, in these like plastic plated or infused carbon plates that will give you a similar riding experience without some of the instability that a carbon plated shoe might give you. So like my second marathon, for example, in Gold Coast, I ran in the Endorphin Speed, and it's still a shoe you can run around like that 3 hour mark and run a bit faster in, because it's got these PIBA foams, it's got these snappy plastic plates in them. You don't necessarily need to be in that carbon plated shoe. Like that Asics Mega Blast, for example, that's a full slab of ATPU foam in there with no plate. And the geometry of it is super racy, super snappy, super responsive, but it has a more stable ride. So you don't have to be in a carbon plated shoe necessarily to race in. some of these shoes in this category are going to be just as good and maybe more comfortable at the end of the day. When you're out there for, yeah, 2.5 to or all the way through to, five hours, like you don't want to be uncomfortable. So some of these shoes might be better options for a marathon. And yeah, you can just see how many different options there are there. So like for your speed tempo type shoes, these plastic plated options, your Hoka Mach X3, your Adidas Boston, your Endorphin Speed, and Puma Deviate Nitro. Uh, I like to recommend those ones more towards like your speed tempo type days. And then there's shoes that are built for the long run. And that's usually like your shoes like your Super Blast, your Mag Max, your Mega Blast, your Mizunos, where they've got more foam underfoot. When you're out there for a 2 hour training run potentially, it just helps to take a lot of the load and stress off of your legs. All right, let's jump into this one now. So now this is your race day category. So race day carbon plated shoes rather than race day plastic plated trainers. So snappy and responsive, highly energetic, lightweight. These are your Pibas, your ATPU foams. Some of these shoes, like your Adidas Pro Evo 2, is weighing in close to that 130 to 150 grams. These Mizunos are in those low 130 grams, and you pick that up and it's like you're holding a piece of paper. So those sort of shoes, like that Adidas shoe, you're only meant to get around 50 kilometers out of it because the way they make the foam, they don't compress it together. It's like this slab of foam that's cut out. That's not, yeah, they don't do any compression to it. So essentially, it just breaks down a lot quicker, but it means it weighs an incredibly less amount. So a lot of these shoes have lower drops in them, so 8 mil and below. You won't see any carbon plated shoe that's above an 8 mil drop. And why is that? Well, you're these are designed for speed, so you're loading up your calves, your Achilles a lot more naturally through that. And when you're going at these faster paces, those are your spring loaded actions. Those muscles are the ones that are kicking and firing to get you moving quickly. So a shoe that's a little bit flatter is going to help you get those firing quicker. So like these shoes up the top are in those like 3 to 4 mil drop range. So the Pumas, which came out this year, really low drop. The Asics 5 mil drop, so a lot flatter. And then the ones down the bottom, which, well, some people might target towards, you have a look at those, like your Fast Star Elites, Pumas, your Adios Pro 4s, your Alpha Flies. Like, these are a lot of shoes you see in marathons. That 8 mil drop, it might just be a little bit more comfortable and might take a little bit more of the load off your calves and Achilles over that longer sustained effort. So what are the kind of subcategories here? Well, marathon, half marathon, you see all these shoes in the corner. But then your 5K, 10K, and cross country shoes are shoes like your Nike Streak Fly. It's a lower stack height. It's around that kind of 28 mil stack. It's a low drop. It's very lightweight. And then your track shoes. So the track shoes broken up into three kind of categories. Your Dragonflies and your Avanti from Adidas. They have a bit more foam under the foot, so they're designed for like your 5K, 10K type of track events. Your Nike Victory and Ambition, they're kind of that mid stack range, and they start to have those like the air units and different technology in there. So designed for like your 1500 through to 3K, and then your sprint spike. So nothing in the heel, really aggressive through the forefoot, carbon plates, designed to get you moving, yeah, quickly. So you'll see one other thing I want to note with this is a lot of brands now have kind of two shoes, all these silos of shoes that you can choose from. So like the most famous one is like your Vaporfly and Alphafly, Asics, your Metaspeed Sky and Edge, Mizuno, the Hyperwarp Elite and Pure. Now On has got this new shoe called the Cloudboom Volt, and then Saucony as well. So for the most part, it's like breaking it up into a half marathon and a marathon shoe. But for Asics, for example, the plates sit in different positions. The stack heights are exactly the same, but where the plate sits is different. So the Metaspeed Edge has more cushioning under the forefoot. So it's seen as a better shoe for longer distances because it helps give you a bit of space between your foot and a stiff carbon plate. And then the Metaspeed Sky plate sits a bit closer to your foot. The foam on the bottom is a snappier, more responsive foam. So it's designed for those faster type of efforts. And then Mizuno, their Hyperwarp Pure is about 10 to 20 grams lighter than the Hyperwarp Elite. And they use different foam technologies in both those shoes. So the Pure is designed predominantly as their marathon shoe, and then the Elite is one step down. Not saying you can run marathons in any of these shoes, but that's the way they like to differentiate the options in there. And then yeah, same for the other brands in there, but I won't dive into every single one of them. But again, yeah, come on in, see us. We have a lot of these shoes in store, and it's good to just get them on foot, try 3 or 4 on, and find which one suits you the best. All right, so this one I didn't quite get time to put in all the photos for the trail shoes, but I can just talk to this slide. Yeah, for anyone doing kind of the UTA that's coming up or Buffalo Stampede in a few weeks, yeah, this one's going to be more prevalent to you. But also what Maddie was saying there before, varying terrain is super important for loading up different muscle groups and yeah, using different ligaments and tendons and getting all of those strong. Going on the trail is something that's going to be great for that because you're always on varied terrain and you're going to be using a lot of different muscle groups that you wouldn't normally use if you're running just on the beachfront, for example. So what makes a trail shoe a little bit different? They have these lugs on the bottom, different millimeters, for added grip across that varied terrain. So it helps make sure that you're firmly secured and fastened and you're not slipping all around the place. So they're generally a little bit firmer and more stable in the midsole. Those the stiffer midsoles help with that uneven terrain. You don't want something super sloppy and soft, where you would potentially feel unstable. These shoes don't have arch support, so the thing that gives them support is usually around the ankle, like stiffer heel collars, just to help lock the ankle in place. But it doesn't have an arch support because you really don't want to be pushed in one direction when you're going over a route or a rock or something like that. You don't want to be pushed in one direction where you want to be going the opposite direction, if that makes sense. So normally they have good ankle support and they help around there, but they won't have any arch blocks or guide rails. And generally these shoes are in that low to mid drop, which helps you adapt to that changing terrain. Whether you're going up staircases or descending down staircases or running across a bunch of rocks, like you're constantly having to shift and change. So being in that kind of Goldilocks zone of the 6 to 8 mil drop helps a little bit with that versatility and change. And then the categories that we're looking at there, again, it's similar to what you get on the road. You could have a trail shoe for most days of the week if you're training for a 100K ultra or 50K ultra, and you've got different scheduled training runs. You can really dive into these different categories of shoes. So they've got your max cushion guys. There's some examples there. You've got your minimal cushion shoes, which are those lower drops. And then you've got more responsive options, which could be better for like your speed tempo or maybe even race day. And then you start to play with plates and everything. Carbon plates is an interesting one for the trails because of the varied terrain and the ups and the downs. The carbon plate isn't as effective on trails as it is on road with like smaller ups and downs. So you'll find a lot of brands now playing with plastic infused rods or plastic plates instead of a carbon plated option. So yeah, again, it'll come down to the your goals, but one of my favorite shoes in trail is the all-terrain type of shoe. So really excited to try. Salomon have come out with this new Aeroglide gravel shoe. So it blends kind of your road and trail. So you can play in both spaces, which is yeah, great. You live on the northern beaches, for example, like we have North Head really close by, and some of the trails over towards like Spit to Manly, you can kind of play in both spaces and look after your road shoes and keep them for the road. And that's everything. Throw back to you, Maddie.
Well, thanks. Thank you, Zach. Some great information there, and yeah, I think I took away quite a bit personally as well. So thank you for putting all that together. We just want to open it up to the floor. If anyone has any questions, they can either come off mute or put it in the chat. Um, we can ask Zach any questions, but I'm going to just fire one straight away to Zach and find out what's your go-to shoe at the moment. Yeah, what shoes are you running in at the moment?
Well, coming off Melbourne Marathon last year, I haven't been running as much as I was leading into that. So I've liked like my Vomero Plus a lot, to be
Mm,
honest. Something that's super cushioned, takes the load off my legs. If I'm going on a faster day, endorphin speed, something with a plastic plate from Saucony, that's always been one of my favorites. Yeah, it just depends on the day of the week, I would say, but really like that Vomero Plus, and I'm keen to maybe pick up a pair of Super Blast, that one coming out last week.
mm.
Very exciting shoe.
Yeah, I had a client run Sydney, Perth, and back to Sydney last year, Alex Barbaros, and he ran in the Vomeros the whole way. So yeah, super soft shoe, really high, like heel drop, so quite high. Took the load off his Achilles and was able to do, I think yeah, I think our average day was like 81 kilometers for 100 days. So yeah, great shoe.
Oh, he was in that the entire
The
time,
whole
hey?
time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
yeah, yeah. Where someone like Chris Turnbull, who ran across, he ran in the Vaporflies the whole way, plated shoe. So polar opposite. So that's why it's really important to find out what works for you.
I've got a
Of
couple of questions, if that's all right.
course, that was Jeremy.
Thank, yeah, thanks so much, Matt and Zach, for putting this on. This is super helpful. If it was only a week earlier, I probably would have saved myself $300. But um, first question is on when it comes to race day shoes, particularly for a marathon. Do you recommend people to go up in size, maybe half a size? Or do you just recommend that people wear what they usually wear? Because I just find towards maybe the middle to the end of the race, your feet start to swell quite a bit, and you feel it. And I lose toenails. So is there a way to avoid that, or is that just inevitable?
yeah. I mean, going in and trying on a few different shoes because every brand fits so differently as well. Like a size 11 in one brand is going to fit slightly differently. Whether I'd go up in size, maybe a little bit. Like most of the carbon fiber shoes as well, they seem to fit a bit smaller too. So if you just yeah go off what you normally go for in a daily trainer, you might actually find that it just fits a bit smaller around the toes. The way that we kind of size up in store is like a very general ways, like pinky to a thumb width, um, is the amount of space you want around your toes, but you don't want that to impact the rest of the fit. So You want it to kind of hug your arch. You want it to be locked in the ankle. So space around the toes is great, but if it affects the rest of the fit, well then, yeah, you don't want too much space around there. So yeah, pinky to a thumb is kind of a general amount of space that we normally recommend, and then it's just going to depend on the rest of the fit of the shoe.
And then is there any different, like, so, I'm sure most people have like a slight difference in size from left to right foot. Does that matter so much, or
You want to fit it to the
the
bigger
bigger
foot,
foot?
right? Because yeah, that's the one that will end up being the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, problem foot or problem toe.
And then for a treadmill shoe, is there, are you trying to remove cushion and foam because the treadmill's taking some of that load away? Like, what's the best recommendation for a treadmill shoe for days when it's raining and whatever?
I To be honest, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that one, Maddie. I don't. It's not really something that I don't think it matters particularly what shoe you use on a treadmill. But yeah, if you're getting some like spring loading from the treadmill, you might not need as much cushioning. But I don't think it really matters, would be my thought on it. I think you could use any shoe on a treadmill. And it then might come down to what you're doing on the treadmill. Like if you're doing intervals on the treadmill, well then you probably want a slightly faster shoe potentially, or if you're just running easy and you're just trying to get kilometers in, any easy daily trainer would be good.
Yeah, cool. And sorry to hog, I just got one last one. Everyone talks about overpronation. I think that's probably more common than oversupination. And I've got oversupination. And so do you have any just quick recommendations off the top of your head of what shoes to look at or where
Mm.
to start?
Yeah, so shoe brands don't create stability for supination. So you don't see like blocks that sit on the outside of the foot to help keep that in alignment. What you're looking for is like wider shoes all the way through. So when you take a step and you're rolling through, it helps kind of catch you on that platform base. So shoes like Hoka, the Bondi, the Saucony Triumph, yeah, anything with a wider last essentially are good. Those are just two off the top of my head that I can think of. But ones that when you are rolling through, it's going to help catch you on the outside and roll you onto your big toe. And usually that's achieved through a wider base.
Great. Thank you.
All good.
Can I jump in? So, hi, Zach. I met you yesterday at Pace.
Hey, Lauren.
Zach kindly fitted me with some new shoes, which is amazing. I had one question. We kind of talked a little bit about it yesterday. Is how necessary is it to have a speed or a tempo shoe? And the reason being, I've worn endorphin speeds before. They work well in 5 and 10K races. I find when I move them to the marathon, I tend to pronate, my Achilles give out. And I guess I was just kind of wondering, coming back from injury, is it necessary to have a speed shoe in the max, or is it kind of you're better just to focus on stability as long as you can still hit the paces and like the tempo or whatever other workout you're doing?
Yeah, I'd say it's not 100% critical. Like
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like you can like when we talked about those different foam categories and how heavy a shoe is, it's just going to be a little bit harder to run fast in a shoe that's a bit heavier, but you can still pick up the pace in a heavier shoe. It's just you'll have to work a little bit harder. And I mean, there's that saying of like if you run in something that's a bit heavier while you're training and you pick up the pace, it's like on race day if you were to wear something lighter, yeah, your body's kind of thanks you for it. So yeah, it's a bit easier to run in a lighter shoe, but absolutely in a daily trainer or something that's got a bit more stability in it, you
Mhm.
can still, yeah, you can absolutely still do your faster runs in that if you need to.
Oh, thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions?
All right, I'll ask one more question. What's your recommendation on how to trial in store with a shoe? Like I found a couple, I'm ready to try them on. What should I be doing to trial it rather than running a kilometer around the block?
Well, that's the tricky thing in store, and like Lauren, we did this yesterday, and it was kind of an empty store. So if you come in during the week, there's more space. There can be more space in the store, but you can just trial it around the store, and all you can do is jog up and down. So that is one way. The other one is like we're opening up a new store. Like if you follow Pace Athletic, you might have seen some hints of something coming today, but future stores will potentially have some treadmills in there, and you can go and see someone who does a specific like gait analysis and looks at that. But the best way to trial it, you can just use 10 meters of space and run up and down or run around the store. And then you're thinking about those few different parts of the shoe, like the width, which when we're measuring up, we'll have a look at the width and everything. But it's like, is there a pinch point? Is it hugging my arch? Am I locked in the heel? Do I feel like it's giving me enough like pop and response? Um, is it comfortable? Like that's at the end of the day, that's almost the best thing. Like the shoe that feels most comfortable in your foot that you can see yourself being in for hours on end is going to be the best shoe. And we can help guide you through the little things about what you might be looking for in terms of how it feels and what might be something that feels wrong about a shoe potentially.
Well,
Well,
Chris,
I might have a quick question. When do you know like a shoe's just had it, right? Like,
Mm,
I've been plugging around in my Super Blast and I've done 800 Ks and I still feel okay. But like, when is that threshold of going, hey, maybe you shouldn't wear them too much that it may cause injury, right? I think we a lot of us endorphin speed, right? I've been, anything, and I've clocked up a fair few Ks on that, and then like, where do you kind of draw the line and going, all right, I when my shoes start to feel like this, I should start thinking about retiring them.
Yeah, it's a good question because it's so like it's a very individual type of thing in terms of how someone uses a shoe
Mm,
or their running gait where they run on it is how will dictate how long it lasts for. Like people have run thousand. I've met people in store that have done 1,000 kilometers plus in the Super Blast, and
yeah,
which is just a incredible amount of time to spend in the shoe. But the things I would think about, because that Super Blast 2 lasted, the foam, I had the Super Blast 1. The foam always looked good. Like I'd done 800 Ks plus
mm,
in it. But I'd be thinking about the um whether or not like you're getting niggles is one thing, because the outer
okay,
sole might look fine, the foam might look fine still. But if it's lost a bit of its like structure and its shape, you might start
yeah,
to feel it a bit in like your knees, or hips, and that's when it's not giving you the same amount of cushion and support that it should
yeah,
be. Another thing to like make sure shoes last longer is you can, if you have just a couple to rotate through, because the foams, if you're running in the same shoe every day, they do compress um, a lot and they don't have time to rebound enough. So to
hmm
keep a shoe for longer, if you're able to like rotate between shoes on different days, it means the foam can just keep bouncing back to its initial state and it doesn't flatten out as quickly.
okay. It's a good to tell the missus that when you've got lots of shoes. All right, I've got to change them out every day. That's why we keep buying them. All right, cool. No, thanks for that.
You're
It's
welcome.
definitely helpful.
I've always found as well that you feel like the shoes are still good, and then you jump in a new pair and you're like, whoa, what was I
Yeah,
doing? Like that
yeah,
was a huge change. So yeah, but like Zach alluded to, it's having some in rotation as well. I think, yeah, I have a whole range that I go through and try and, my hard training, like run shoes, I only use them once a week most of the time. So yeah, it's good to have a bit of a mix as well. And they last, longer then. Yeah. We'll wrap it up there. Thank you everyone for attending tonight. Some great questions, and I hope you got some information out. I'll grab these slides from Zach as well, and I'll send them out to you guys so you can have a look around those shoes as well. So hope you learned something, and thank you for attending.
Great.
Perfect.
Thanks,
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Manny. Thanks, Zach. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Cheers.
Thanks all. Bye.
Zach will just wait for them to